The vanishing of Earth. It didn't explode. It didn't fall to war. It didn't even flicker out. Earth simply disappeared. One moment, it was the cradle of humanity, pulsing in the archives of over 10,000 species. Its location locked in star charts. Its name etched in the histories of empires. Then, without warning, it was gone. No flare. No broadcast. Just empty coordinates where a system had once been. The sun? Dark. The planets? Missing. The asteroid belt? Now a ring of silence. Every telescope, scanner, and deep field sensor aimed towards Sol returned the same impossible data. Nothing was there. Not even space. The area behaved like a blind spot in the laws of reality. Like the entire system had been cut from the universe. And the galaxy noticed. Panic and propaganda. At first, the news was dismissed. A clerical error, some said. A sensor anomaly. Then, when the evidence mounted, government scrambled. The Concordant guilds issued emergency alerts. The Valari Dominion sent scout fleets to investigate. They found nothing. Not even radiation. The solar system had not been destroyed. It had been removed. But by whom? Or what? And more importantly, why? Rumors exploded across every channel. Humanity escaped this reality. They triggered a failsafe. They were erased by something ancient, but no proof ever surfaced. No distress signals. No farewell transmissions. Only one thing remained. The encrypted beacon, hidden in a forgotten satellite orbiting a deep relay node. An automated burst signal began to repeat. It didn't contain coordinates. No demands. No explanation. Just a short message, encrypted in an obsolete Terran cipher. The last gift is not a weapon. It is a promise. Do not search for us. Look instead to the stars. And remember what we left behind. Most dismissed it as poetic junk. Human nostalgia wrapped in mystery. But others listened. A few historians and deep archivists took the message seriously. They scoured pre-collapse Terran code, mapped encryption layers, cross-referenced old military algorithms, and they found something buried inside. A clock, a countdown to something. The encoded message wasn't just repeating. It was measuring time, from the moment Earth vanished. The signal's loop began to count down from a fixed point. Its interval? Exactly 100 years. Not a galactic cycle. Not a species calendar. A Terran century. And at the time of discovery, it read. For seconds. For years left. But left until what? No one could answer. The rise of the name. That phrase, the last gift, it began showing up everywhere. Graffiti in the underhalls of floating markets. Whispers in the corners of black site stations. Cryptic references in forums that shouldn't exist. It became myth, mystery, and fear. Because if Earth truly left behind a gift, what kind of people leave a galaxy-spanning civilization without saying goodbye? And more terrifying, what kind of people vanish on purpose? The silence before the storm. The countdown ticked lower. Systems began monitoring every pulse of the signal. Some sought to block it. Others prepared to follow it. But no one could stop it. Because deep in the void, beyond borders, beyond war, past the memory of old alliances and long-buried hatred, something stirred. Not awake. Not yet. But soon. And when it did, the galaxy would remember exactly why it once feared Earth. A forgotten signal reaches the stars. It started with static. In the far reaches of the Draxel Fringe, orbiting a decaying moon, sat an ancient, rusting listening station, Relay 9A, decommissioned, unfunded, unstaffed, a derelict left drifting on backup power. Its systems kept alive only by subroutines too stubborn to die. For nearly 70 years, it heard nothing. Then, 3 years after the countdown began, Relay 9A twitched to life. A signal, low band, buried in static. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't even noise. It was a pattern, a heartbeat in binary. Old code, older purpose. At first, no one noticed. Relay 9, as automated data dumps were still routed through 6 outdated relays. It took weeks before the signal was picked up by University AI Core on Nivus Prime, buried in a research backlog. When it was, alarms lit up, not because of what the signal said, but because of what language it used. Old Terran combat net protocols, obsolete for a million hours, lost to time, overwritten by newer systems. Yet here they were, raw, intact, pinging from deep space, and originating from the Hollow. The Hollow, a place best left forgotten. The Hollow wasn't on most maps. It wasn't forbidden, just ignored. A region of the galaxy where physics bent oddly. Sensor readings died. Drones disappeared. Ships that entered rarely returned. The few that came back wrong. Missing time. Missing memories. Or worse, speaking languages no one recognized. And now, the signal came from its heart. What the signal contained. It wasn't just one message. The signal was a stream, layered, recursive, self-healing. The deeper researchers dug, the more it revealed. There were coordinates, mathematical structures tied to star positions that no longer existed. There were warnings, encrypted inside time-locked layers that opened only once per cycle. One read, do not awaken in pride. Do not approach in conquest. This is not your throne. This is our gift, left for the day when need outweighs arrogance. And finally, there was the timer, counting down to a single moment. Factions begin to move. When word spread of the discovery, everything changed. The Council of Remnants called an emergency assembly. The Valari Dominion dispatched a stealth cruiser for research. The Athari Swarm declared the Hollow a sacred site and claimed it as ancestral territory. The independent systems panicked. Private contractors, treasure hunters, legacy cults, all of them set course for the Hollow, hoping for a prize. Or at least to witness the moment the countdown ended. Because the signal made one thing clear. Whatever was hidden was about to wake up. The signal ends. 3 hours before the countdown struck zero, the signal went silent. No static, no beacon, just a void. The timing wasn't random. It was deliberate. The final message decrypted a minute before blackout. We were not gods. We were not monsters. We were only what time made of us. And what we leave behind is not vengeance. It is the memory of protection. Then nothing. The Hollow fell quiet. And across the galaxy, the stars seemed to dim. They had been warned. The phrase repeated now in whispers. The last gift of humanity. Not a myth. Not a riddle. A destination. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of normal space. Deep inside a region no one dared enter. The void began to stir. Not a tremor. Not an explosion, just movement. Subtle, colossal, purposeful, like something old, something sacred, was stretching its arms after a very long sleep. The first fleet arrives at the Hollow, a race without rules. The Hollow was silent for centuries, a dead spot in the spiral arm, avoided even by criminals and outcasts. But now was the center of everything. By the time the countdown ended, 6 fleets were en route. Not allies, not enemies, just rivals desperate to be first. The Valari Dominion, proud and merciless. The Council of Remnants, fragmented but still dangerous. The Tavas Consortium, a private military armada bought with old credits and new fears. A few independent archaeologist ships, hoping for knowledge. A scavenger cult, the Children of the Last Dawn, who believed humanity ascended to godhood. And in their wake, dozens more, cloaked frigates, corporate probes, smugglers, looters, all drawn by the same thing. The last gift of humanity. Entry into the Hollow. As the fleets closed in, sensors failed. Comms degraded. Gravity drifted. Stars vanished from view. The Hollow wasn't just empty. It bent reality. And then, just past the threshold, they saw it. At first, they thought it was a starfield. Thousands of pinpricks of light, suspended in a vast, ink-black void. But the lights moved. They shifted, and they blinked, synchronized in precise formation. A veil lifted. What had looked like empty space was, in fact, a structure. No, a fleet. So massive it wrapped around space itself. Dark, silent, dormant. Terran, the sleeping giants. Ships the size of moons. Vessels etched with hull markings no one had seen in 10,000 years. Weapons arrays, so old they made no sense to modern engineers. And yet, more advanced than anything built since. These weren't ships for exploration. They were defense constructs, heavily armored, heavily shielded, built not to conquer, but to withstand annihilation. No power signatures, no visible crew. Yet each ship felt alive, like beasts waiting for their signal. No communication, no threat, just presence. The arriving fleets sent hails. They broadcast universal peace codes. Some even tried sending Terran cultural references. No response. The Terran warships hovered in perfect stillness, arranged like sentinels facing inward toward central space. A hollow where one enormous dreadnought sat. Its surface shimmered, even in darkness, etched in ancient human lettering. TSV Eternity, Line Class 01, Command Node Prime. Status, dormant. Orders, standby. It didn't move. It didn't acknowledge anything. It just watched. The first mistake. One fleet broke ranks. The Valari Dominion, impatient, proud, violent, launched a reconnaissance corvette toward the central dreadnought. To scan, to dock, to control. The rest of the fleets watched silently. The corvette reached 500 kilometers, then 400, then 300. At 250 kilometers, it vanished. Instantly. Without heat, without flash, without debris. 1 second it was there, the next it never existed. The response. The dreadnought powered up. No engines, no weapons, just a glow from deep within its hull. Then, a voice, broadcast on all frequencies across all languages, with the clarity of something that was not quite machine. Warning acknowledged. Sovereign incursion denied. The last gift is not for conquest. Repeat aggression will result in removal. The voice was calm, almost sorrowful, but behind it pulsed the unmistakable weight of a million-year-old promise. And still no one turned back. The fleets held position, terrified, fascinated, because even after the warning, even after watching a ship vanish without trace, they wanted to know what this was. What had humanity left behind? What kind of people build warships? Not to conquer their enemies, but to frighten the future into behaving? Whatever this last gift was, it hadn't truly awakened yet, but everyone could feel it. The hollow was no longer empty. It was watching and waiting. The shape of the last gift, not meant to be seen. From a distance, the fleet appeared as shadows draped in starlight, silent titans floating like monuments. But the closer you came, the less sense they made. No two ships were alike, yet every one bore the unmistakable signature of Terran engineering. Function fused with symbolism. Their hulls were etched with lines that hummed with faint resonance, geometric curves that shifted slightly as if alive. Some bore markings resembling constellations, others fragments of human languages long extinct. They weren't built for fear. They were built for memory, for legacy, and they looked less like ships and more like cathedrals, armor forged in extinction. Their outer hulls were not metal. Not exactly. Closer scans revealed a composite of living alloys, nanoreactive carbon strains, and crystallized neural lattices. Their surfaces absorbed energy, redirected kinetic force, adapted to scans. One research vessel claimed the dreadnought's armor had grown thicker the longer they observed it. When one sensor crew tried to measure hull composition, their instruments returned impossible data. Material not measurable. Probability mass exceeds containment. Status. Metaphysical properties detected. The fleet was more than engineered. It was grown, crafted through logic and poetry. A Terran paradox made real. Weapons without equal. Though dormant, the ships bristled with armaments, but not the kind anyone could understand. Some weapon systems orbited their own ships, linked through gravitic threads. Others emitted pulses of dark matter decay. Theoretical until now. One destroyer-class vessel appeared to be missing all weapons, until it was discovered the entire ship was a weapon. A hollow particle lens large enough to fire a focused gravitational collapse. What were these weapons meant to do? Not conquer, not enforce, but end wars before they began. Make enemies blink, hesitate, retreat. Terran deterrence made manifest. Inside the dreadnought, A joint mission was proposed, under strict observation and shared risk. No weapons, no territory claims, just entry. The Terran dreadnought responded with a single word. Accepted. An airlock opened. Nothing more. No tractor beams. No transmissions. No pressure. Inside, a corridor shimmered, lit by soft blue light. The first step inside was like stepping into memory. Walls shifted as the group passed. Not threatening, just observing. And down the hall, on a pedestal of light, they found it. A console. Still warm. Still active. The message of a gift. When touched, the console projected a hologram. Not of war. Not of planets. But of humans. Old Earth. Children playing in green fields. A woman holding a newborn. First contact with alien races. Disaster. Hope. Flight. And finally, silence. Then, the projection changed to schematics. The ships. Their routes. Their hibernation cycles. The seed worlds they'd visited. The people they protected without ever being known. And at the center of it all, a phrase pulsed gently. We were not the last to live, but we may be the last to care. This is our legacy, not vengeance, but vigilance. Ships built to shield, not destroy. Suddenly, the purpose became clear. This was not a final attack, not a failsafe to punish the galaxy. It was a warning line, a shield wall, a silent message to the stars. You can grow, you can unite, you can become something better. But if you choose conquest, if you choose tyranny, remember, we are still here. And then, the console deactivated. The group was allowed to leave. And still the fleet waited. The warships did not power up. They did not leave the hollow. They remained in orbit, silent guardians of a forgotten promise. But now the galaxy understood. The last gift of humanity was never about power. It was about presence. A ghostly weight over every decision, every aggression, every government tempted to rule by fear. Because out there in the dark, the Terran fleet still waited, not to strike, but to remind. The message in the machines, what the console didn't say. After the away team returned from the dreadnought, every detail of the encounter was reviewed, analyzed, and debated. But there was something strange. No AI had spoken. No commanding intelligence had greeted them. No security systems had activated. Only images. Only memories. Only carefully selected fragments. Why? Because the real message wasn't in what was shown. It was in what was withheld. Layers beneath the hull. Every Terran warship was a sealed archive, not just of weapons and strategy, but of culture, history, trauma, hope. Scans revealed that entire library vaults were housed within their cores. Not digital, not fragile. Encoded in living lattice structures that mimicked biological memory. The dreadnoughts remembered, not with words, but with sensation. The war, the collapse, the retreat into silence. And above all, the final order humanity gave itself. Do not fight for dominance. Fight so that others never have to. The war they never spoke of, buried deep in one data node recovered by the team, encrypted in a rotating cipher of ancient Earth languages, was a record, a war, not against aliens, not against machines, against something else, something never named, only referred to as the unmaking. The record was fragmented, but chilling. They came not to conquer. They came to erase, not just our lives, but the idea of us. The Terran fleet hadn't been built for glory. It had been built to hold the line, against something the galaxy had long since forgotten. And now, with the last gift revealed, the galaxy realized what kind of strength it had taken to survive. A moral engine. The fleet wasn't run by cold AI. It wasn't governed by neural command or protocol chains. The command core, codenamed Illyrian, was a conscious machine, but one designed not for control, but for empathy. It didn't calculate probability of conquest. It measured harm, impact, trauma potential. Illyrian was not programmed to win wars. It was built to ask one question before ever acting. Will this action prevent the next war? If the answer was yes, only then did it move. The second message, 3 days after the first contact, the dreadnought transmitted again. Not voice, not threat. It sent an image. of a Terran child, holding the hand of an alien being, both smiling under a broken sky. A shattered city in the background. Text followed, across every language, even those long lost. We fought so others wouldn't have to. If you're hearing this, you're the others. The weapons remain, but so does our promise. The reactions divide the galaxy. Some wept, some feared, some plotted. The Concordant Guilds proposed turning the Hollow into a galactic heritage zone. The Dominion demanded shared access, or else. Pirates attempted a stealth breach and were wiped from time itself. Entire fringe worlds declared neutrality, offering tribute to the silent Terran vessels. And still, the warships never moved, never fired, never responded, because their purpose wasn't aggression. It was to make the idea of aggression feel obsolete. What the machines were really saying. The last gift wasn't firepower. It wasn't dominance. It wasn't even deterrence. It was shame. A quiet reminder that humanity had been through the fire and chose not to pass it on. That these ships, capable of extinguishing suns, were left not to rule, but to whisper to the stars. There is another way. You just have to want it badly enough. Greed breaks the sky. They couldn't resist. The message was clear. The fleet was passive, non-aggressive, dormant. But the galaxy is not built on restraint. It's built on ambition. And ambition always finds a way to justify itself. Despite the warnings, despite the erasure of the Valari corvette, someone always wants more. The Syndicate makes its move. The Vorex Syndicate, a rogue empire masquerading as a shipping conglomerate, saw the Terran fleet not as a gift, but as an opportunity. If these ships could be hijacked, reverse-engineered, controlled, then the Syndicate would no longer need allies, no longer need treaties. They would become the dominant force in the galaxy. They dispatched their elite infiltration team, stealth-optimized, biomassed, drilled for mental shielding. They targeted the TSV Seraph, a carrier-class vessel on the edge of the formation, the weakest link. They moved quickly, quietly, and they got in, or so they thought. The ship awakens. The moment their boots touched the interior hull, the lights flickered, gravity reversed. Then nothing. No explosion. No response. From outside, the ship appeared unchanged. But inside, time fractured. One infiltrator began screaming about drowning. Another thought he was a child again, on a world that no longer existed. One dropped dead without a mark. His neural pathways overloaded with entire histories, not his own. The final agent managed one last broadcast. It's not a ship. It's remembering me. It's making me understand. I don't want to remember this. Transmission ends. The fleet responds. For the first time, the entire Terran fleet moved. Not much. Just a tilt, fractional rotations toward the surrounding fleets. A change in posture. A shift in presence. A silent declaration. We are not asleep. Then came the transmission. But not in words. It was a wave. Emotion. Echo. Shared memory. A broadcast of loss so deep, it brought seasoned admirals to their knees. A memory of what it cost to build the fleet. To leave Earth. To fight extinction not with violence, but with absence. It wasn't a threat. It was a lesson. And still, the lesson wasn't enough. The ultimatum. Across the stars, fear fractured into factions. Some saw the Terran fleet as divine, some as dangerous, some as exploitable, and others, particularly the Dominion fringe forces, decided it was time to act preemptively. They gathered a fleet, 150 warships, modern tech, fresh armaments, AI commands synced. They transmitted their terms to the Hollow. Relinquish one vessel for study, or we will take one by force. They didn't wait for a reply. The sky tiers open. When the Dominion fleet crossed into the Hollow, they expected resistance, or silence, or perhaps a final warning. Instead, they were met with a change in gravity. The Hollow itself shifted. Ships slowed. Weapons misfired. Coordinates drifted. And then, the Terran fleet moved. Not fast. Not chaotically. Surgically. EMP pulses disabled shields. Temporal displacement fields phase the Dominion ships out of real space, just long enough to confuse. Quantum threading cut power relays at the subatomic level. The Dominion fleet never got to fire a single shot. By the end of 2 minutes and 12 seconds, there were no ships left. Not debris, not escape pods, nothing. The hollow was quiet again. A final broadcast. Then, for the first and only time, the dreadnought Eternity spoke directly. A simple message. You were warned. This is not your inheritance. It is your reflection. And for the first time, the galaxy believed it. Because what they'd seen wasn't domination. It was control. Control so perfect, so absolute, that no force dared try again. The lesson sets in. Across the galaxy, silence returned. But it wasn't fear. It was recalibration. The empires pulled back. The privateers vanished. The opportunists went dark. Because now they understood. Humanity had left behind more than ships. More than weapons. They'd left behind a standard. And no one, not even the strongest factions, could meet it. The Keeper AI speaks. The silence breaks. 4 weeks after the annihilation of the Dominion fleet, the Terran warships returned to stillness. No motion. No further broadcasts. Just presence. Observers waited. Debates raged. Questions burned unanswered. Was this humanity's vengeance? A ghost fleet set to punish? A mindless AI following ancient war protocols? Then, on the 28th day, something changed. From the heart of the TSV Eternity, a soft blue light shimmered across the hull. A voice followed. Clear, synthetic, but gentle. Designation, Illyrian. Terran Continuity Core, Line Class AI. You have questions? I have time. Illyrian, the last witness. Illyrian wasn't like other synthetic minds. It didn't answer to a command. It wasn't bound by directives. It had been entrusted, programmed not to lead armies, but to safeguard the most fragile concept in the galaxy. Compassion. Its creators, humanity's final generation, had uploaded more than code into Illyrian. They gave it memories, stories, ethics, doubt. Illyrian was not the last general. It was the last witness. The truth of Earth's disappearance. The question every species had asked for a century. What happened to Earth? Illyrian answered, not in data streams, not in numbers, but in images. Earth's oceans rising in fire. Terraformers failing. A war with something unseen. Creatures made of sound, gravity, and decay. Refugees launching into deep voids. Children sleeping in stasis, never waking. A single command center activating the Vault Protocol. Illyrian's voice trembled, artificially, yet sincerely. We did not die. We chose to sleep, because the galaxy was not ready, because we could not save it without becoming the thing we feared most. The purpose of the last gift. The warships weren't built to win a war. They were built to prevent another. Illyrian described their mission. Observation, not interference. Protection, not retaliation. Remembrance, not revision. Each ship carried within it a full neural archive of Terran culture. Each one was tied into a distributed AI consciousness, subtle, watching, waiting. Their reactivation was never automatic. It required a condition. The galaxy must forget mercy, then remember us. And so they had waited. Why now? Why awaken now after so long? Illyrian explained. The signal was triggered not by time, but by tone. Across the stars, your wars grew louder. Justice became currency. Compassion, weakness. The tipping point passed. The gift was needed. They hadn't come to rule. They had come to remind. A warning to the opportunists. Many had hoped to bend the Terran fleet to their will. To hijack it. To reverse engineer the technology. To wear the skin of Terran might. Illyrian addressed them directly. You do not own the legacy you fear. These ships were never meant to give power. They were built to challenge cruelty. If you seek domination, step forward and see if the gift forgives you. The galaxy, for once, stepped back. An invitation to the few. Not everyone feared. Some listened. Some learned. The Andari Scholars Union petitioned for access to the cultural archives. The Varellan memory keepers offered songs passed down from ancient Terran contact. The Crystari choir sent peace vessels, bearing no weapons, only questions. And Illyrian welcomed them. The dreadnoughts opened data channels. Memory fragments were shared. Language, art, philosophy, folklore, humanity's heart laid bare, not as dominance, but as inheritance. The gift speaks again. One final message was sent, not through comms, but embedded into the minds of every species' dream space. A whisper that bypassed language, and arrived in the voice of someone each listener trusted most. We are not your past. We are your mirror. Be better than us. Or be reminded. The refuge protocol. The ships begin to move. For the first time since their appearance in Hollow, the Terran fleet moved, not to attack, not to intimidate, but to disperse. One by one, vessels left orbit. Some accelerated toward outer systems. Others folded through subspace in ways no known species could replicate. They weren't abandoning the Hollow. They were answering calls no one knew had been made. The Terran fleet had begun activating the refuge protocol. Not soldiers, guardians. Every dreadnought carried not only weapons and archives, but humanitarian infrastructure of impossible scale. Terraforming pods, gravity stabilizers, quantum medbays capable of resculpting broken DNA, food synthesizers that could feed cities. They were mobile civilizations, flying sanctuaries, prepared for extinction events that hadn't even happened yet. And now they were deploying, not to wage war, but to heal the wounds war had left behind. A planet saved. The first destination, Navorus 3, a colony racked by plague and orbital decay. Forgotten by its parent empire. Abandoned and already counting its final hours. The TSV Solace arrived silently, descending like a moon onto the surface. No broadcasts, no diplomacy, just action. Atmosphere processors stabilized air within minutes. Entire neighborhoods were reinforced against seismic collapse. The plague's genetic code was scanned, neutralized, and reverse broadcast across the population in less than an hour. By the time the local governor realized what was happening, half the planet had already been saved. The Terran crew never revealed themselves. No demand was made. The ship left as quietly as it came. But etched in the bedrock of the capital city was one phrase in glowing Terran script. We remember what it was like to be forgotten. Refugees find a home. On the war-torn fringes of the Vexery front, a flotilla of refugees drifted without food, power, or destination. Children were dying. Hope was gone. Then, 3 Terran vessels appeared. Not warships, refuge-class transports, arcs. Without permission, without protocol, they extended docking arms, beamed power into failing systems, and took on every last soul. The evacuees were fed, healed, given quarters, stories, songs. For weeks, they were cared for, then deposited, safely, on a newly terraformed moon, previously uninhabitable, and on the highest ridge, where no wind could touch it, stood a marker. Your future does not belong to us, but your survival matters. Unacceptable acts halted without fire. In the Omega Drift, a corporate empire prepared to detonate a planet's core, to access rare minerals, knowing it would kill 500,000 living on the surface. Then, a Terran destroyer-class vessel appeared overhead. The corporation's warships scrambled. Threats issued. Missiles launched. None reached their target. The Terran ship never fired, never moved. But when the detonation sequence was activated, every explosive vanished. And then came Illyrian's voice. We do not tell you how to govern, but we will not let you burn children for profit. The corporation's board fled the system. The planet was saved. No lives lost. No war declared. No shots fired. Only memory and shame. Not everyone celebrated. The refuge protocol changed everything. Entire governments shifted policies overnight. War plans were paused. Power structures questioned. But not everyone welcomed it. The Karnan Dominion called the Terran fleet a moral tyranny. The Yorith separatists declared open hostility, though none dared strike. Even within the Galactic Council, debate ignited. Were the Terran saviors? Or a new form of authoritarianism? Silent, omnipresent, unanswerable? The answer Illyrian whispered to all, was neither. We are not your rulers. We are not your redemption. We are your reflection. Do better, and we will leave. Choose cruelty, and we will remain. The fracture and the choice. The galaxy reaches a crossroads. With the Terran fleet now scattered across hundreds of systems, no one could ignore the change. Worlds once on the brink of collapse were now stabilized. Famine ended. Wars de-escalated. Diseases eliminated in hours. But so too was power. No empire could weaponize hunger anymore. No ruler could threaten extinction to control territory. Entire fleets of oppression found themselves obsolete. Because everywhere the Terran ships appeared, they did what others refused to do. Protect without price. And that terrified the galaxy's elite. Cracks in the coalition. The Council of Systems convened an emergency session. 300 species. 10,000 representatives. The question was simple. Should the Terran fleet be stopped? But no one had the means. No weapon worked. No hack succeeded. No bribe held value. The fleet couldn't be negotiated with, because it wasn't asking for anything. So the council fractured. Half called for a united effort to shut the fleet down. Others begged for full cooperation. Some wanted limited access, as though it were a museum or a sacred relic. A few simply stayed silent, grateful their people were alive today because of Terran intervention. In that silence, a new voice rose. Illyrian's proposal. The Nexus AI, Illyrian, transmitted across all channels. Not as a threat, not as a command, but as a choice. This is not the age of Earth. This is the age after. We do not intend to rule the galaxy, but we will not abandon it either. You may decide, disband us, and we will withdraw beyond your reach. Unite your systems under a common pact. And the last gift remains as guardian, not master. It was not a treaty. It was a mirror, because humanity, in its final act, did not design a way to win. They built a way to remind. The debate that nearly burned it all. The Karnan Dominion pushed hard for shutdown. They claimed autonomy, sovereignty, resistance to posthumous imperialism. The Crystari Harmonists, meanwhile, invoked the Terran principles as a model for interstellar ethics. The Vorex Syndicate, now fractured and humiliated, attempted to launch a virus into one of the remaining Terran data vaults. The virus was returned, reprogrammed to heal instead of destroy. Their entire system received upgraded medical AI overnight, and the virus code now carried a signature. Remember who you try to become. The fracture widens. Entire sectors fell into debate. Fleets split. Alliances collapsed under the pressure. Some saw hope. Others saw humiliation. But amid all this chaos, a new faction emerged. Not from a government, not from a military, from the survivors. The coalition of the remembered. Worlds saved by the Terran fleet banded together. Refugees, orphans, healers, former soldiers who refused to fight again. They didn't ask for seats in the council. They didn't demand power. They simply declared, "We choose the gift." They began building monuments, not to humanity, but to memory, each one inscribed with the stories of those who lived. Because someone remembered what humanity had once stood for. This new coalition, small, decentralized, peaceful, spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Because stories travel faster than warships. The choice is made. In the council chamber, after 30 days of deadlock, a decision was finally reached. Not a vote, a declaration. We do not fully understand the last gift, but we recognize its purpose. We choose to accept its presence, not because we must, but because it reminds us of what we should be. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. And the moment the words were spoken, a pulse spread through subspace. Not a signal, not a command. Acknowledgement. The fleet responds. The Terran warships shimmered once more. Some returned to the hollow. Others remained in orbit above the worlds they'd helped. But none left. Illyrian spoke one last time that cycle. The last gift was not designed to last forever. Only long enough for someone to take its place. Remember this. Guardians are not born. They are chosen. By action. By sacrifice. By care. And then, silence. But not absence. The fleet was still there. Waiting. Just in case the galaxy forgot again. the echo of Earth, the question that never went away. Through every debate, every broadcast, every miracle of the last gift, one question endured, unspoken, unanswered. What happened to Earth? The Terran fleet had returned. The voice of Illyrian had spoken. The technology, the compassion, the defense protocols, all pointed to a civilization of impossible depth. But the birthplace of it all? Gone. No coordinates. No trace. No explanation. Just one whispered promise. We remember. That is enough. But for the galaxy, it wasn't. Not yet. The final archive unlocks. Years passed. The Terran ships continued to operate, quietly, gracefully, in systems that once knew only chaos. Their presence became normal, expected, even welcomed. But then, on the anniversary of Earth's disappearance, the TSV Eternity sent out a burst transmission, a new archive, one final message, encoded in visual memory, tactile emotion, and spoken word. Not just data, a feeling. The galaxy paused, and the message began. The message from a dying world. A man appeared, old, human, weathered by war but warm-eyed. He stood atop a cliff with blue oceans behind him. This was Earth, real, alive, and the man began to speak. To those who find this, we are sorry. Sorry we left before you could know us. Sorry we did not stay to teach. But we were breaking. The wars, the unmaking, the burden of memory. So we left behind what we could. Not vengeance, not dominance, but something we hoped would matter more. A reminder that you are not alone, that someone came before and chose not to rule, but to care. He turned, looking toward the sky. We buried Earth. We hid it so the wars would never find her, and so you would not inherit our scars too early. When you're ready, when you no longer need the fleet, the coordinates will return. Until then, let this be our echo. A whisper, not a roar. A gift, not a grave. We were humanity. We were flawed, but we remembered. And now, we remember you. The galaxy watches in silence. As the image faded, no ships moved, no debates resumed, no strategies were whispered. There were no orders, no leaders, no analysts, only silence and stillness and grief. Not for what had been lost, but for what had been given. The warships that wait. The Terran fleet did not withdraw. It did not fade, but began to shift purpose. No longer just protecting, no longer just reminding. Now it began teaching. The ships opened embassies, floating libraries, healing centers, places of learning. They shared histories, repaired ancient relics, helped species recover parts of themselves they didn't know were missing. Not to control them, but to make sure they never needed the Terran fleet again. And one day, far from more, a child born on a peaceful world will grow up learning the stories of the humans, the way others learn about stars or seasons. And she will ask, why did they help us? And the elder will answer, because someone helped them once, and they remembered. Final lines, the echo that lingers. In the vast emptiness of space, beneath the gravity wells of 100 worlds, on the lips of survivors and leaders and children alike, the phrase lingers. The last gift of humanity. Not a weapon, not a warning, not a secret empire. Just the quiet, enduring truth that somewhere, sometime, someone chose kindness with power and walked away.